7 kinds of mischief! That intro is just too perfect. I've never been like completely happy with an intro ever. There's always like, oh, I could do this or I could do that. But that one, the only thing I add is that little welcome to 7 kinds of mischief at the end. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love that intro. Greetings, one and all, and welcome to 7 kinds of mischief, along with Adega Outlaw, the doctor of disaster and destruction. How are you doing, my friend?
Good evening. I'm doing great.
Heck yes. And we're in October, man. We're in like the second week of October here.
Yes, it's a fun month for me and my family and a lot of other people who really enjoy the spooky and the scary and the twisted and the demented and the axe murders and the disappearances and all that fun stuff.
Who's already watching horror movies? Me.
Also going through the X-Files.
Yes. Yeah. Hell yeah. Gotta love Halloween. You gotta love Halloween. I'm in the middle of the Scream movies. I'm gonna go on to Nightmare on Elm Street and watch the Jason movies, and it's just buckets of blood after that. So
right,
kill.
One of my favorite older ones was Phantasm. Never saw the other ones, but Phantasm I thought was pretty
Phantasm. Cool. Dude, I remember Phantasm. Did you ever watch that one about the car that kills people? Not Christine, but the other one.
I don't think so.
The one that it's like a cop gets taken out, and it's like this big black Ford. God, I can't remember.
I might have read the story, but I didn't see it.
Man, I watched like I watched a sequel to that the other day that had Jamie Bamber in it, and I was like, "Holy shit! I can't believe they remade this movie." And the guy that was in the original plays like a garage hand that fixes the car, and it's like, "Holy shit, man!" And it's crazy seeing that.
Wow. Well, I wanted to do something a little bit different. You know, I always bring you the truth, but I'm still going to do that. But this one's a lot more suggestive, or subjective, I should say, not suggestive, subjective. And Loki decided he wanted to join me with it. So we're going to read a few stories. What I'm bringing this week is ghost stories. Now, there are those people who believe and those people who don't, and I know most of you that are paying attention tonight understand that this actually is a real phenomena, and I think I may actually share one of mine. Loki says I haven't shared it with our group before, so I will go ahead and share most of it. I won't get all of it. But let me read you a little story. Loki's got a longer one. One of these actually is something that can be verified. So I'm going to read that one first. And if we have time, I'll read another one plus my own stuff. This one is a documented case, and it's very short, but it gives you an idea that there are ways to validate these things. This one's called The Policeman and the Soldier. I don't know if any of you have heard of this story before. But like I said, these are all supposed to be real. Here we go. I had a call to a residence for a mental evaluation, or a 5150. If that's still police code, I don't know. Anyways, I get there and speak to a 50-some-year-old woman who states her 20-something-year-old son is under the influence of an unknown drug, and kept repeating that he can't go into his bedroom because there's an old man hanging in his room. She stated she was too scared to go into his room and investigate for herself because he constantly brings over friends that are drug addicts and is unsure if his claims were true or not. I then go and speak with the son, who is clearly under the influence of some stimulant. He goes on to tell me that he was told by a spirit to not enter the bedroom because her father, dressed in his military Class A uniform, and hanged in his bedroom. I checked the room out, and of course, there was no body hanging in the room. As I am in the middle of explaining to the mother that there was no body in the bedroom, a veteran officer arrives on the scene to assist me. He pulls me aside and stated earlier in his career he responded to this residence and that same bedroom. He had to investigate a suicide by hanging of an older male suspect. He didn't remember all the details, so I looked it up in a report management system in my patrol car, and sure enough, the officer was correct. The subject who died was a World War II veteran and had dressed in his military uniform and hanged himself. In my mind, I always thought that when they purchased the home, possibly this incident was disclosed to them. However, I thought the mother would have mentioned it to me if it had been disclosed to her. She was genuinely concerned about her son and the allegations. Well, apparently that was true and verified by 2 police reports. I'm going to turn it over for Loki for another one, and then we'll come back to me.
Sorry, I was typing. I was thinking
okay.
Purple Valkyrie and Lady Mist because yes, the movie is called The Car. The movie I brought up is called The Car. Okay, so my story is called Figure in Dark Robes. I'm getting tongue tied. Oh, you should have seen me earlier today trying to do my script for my Lord of the Rings video. I recorded it too because I kept messing up, and I was like, I am the modern Major General. All right, so the Figure in Dark Robes. I've told this to a select few, and while creepiest, scariest is subjective, in the context of my life, it truly is the creepiest and scariest unsolved mystery. I was a freshman in high school in my hometown of La Crosse, Wisconsin, sleeping over at a friend's house. We were watching a movie in his living room when suddenly he got a phone call. I watched as he listened to what was being said on the other line. I watched as emotion poured over his face, and I watched when he threw his phone across the room. After moments of crying, he told me that a boy at my school had committed suicide. Now, I knew this boy only through seeing him in the halls. My friend Tom and I didn't go to the same high school, but Tom had gone to middle school with this boy, and he had apparently bullied him during those years. He wasn't proud of it, and to be honest, I was pretty surprised because he was a great guy. He had true remorse. He decided to sneak out and go for a walk. It was 1990, maybe 1991. We were freshmen in high school. Now, sneaking out was nothing new. We always did it. At the time, we weren't into alcohol or partying or anything like that. We just liked the freedom of walking the streets at night. The discussions were always great. Normally, we'd go walk through the big cemetery that was near my house. It was behind the train tracks that still ran through La Crosse to this day. We loved the danger of the cemetery, the scares. We were kids. It was a rite of passage. As we walked along the train tracks leading to the cemetery, we stopped. To this day, I can't explain why. We'd walked into that cemetery dozens of times and on scarier nights. For whatever reason, we didn't want to go in there that night. I don't know if the thought of death on our minds due to my classmate's suicide was a factor. Perhaps. Regardless, without really saying anything to each other, we stopped, turned around, and decided to head down a nearby street. Now, in retrospect, I do have to say that throughout this walk, everything seemed off. There wasn't a car in sight. This was suburbia. Even walking through the town's main street was odd because there just wasn't anybody there. No police, nothing. It was roughly after midnight. It was a weekend night. Where the hell was everybody? Lastly, there was something in the air. Tom and I both felt it. We even brought it up. It feels weird tonight. The air, the lights, everything. So we decided to walk down a dead-end street. The end of the street was a ditch with a simple up, down, and a trail that led to the street that I lived on. Simple enough. Keep in mind, though, as I get into the horrifying part of the story, that we were in the suburbs. These weren't old, creepy houses with strange people living in them. And the trees were small. It wasn't a brand new development, but it wasn't that old either. So as Tom and I are walking down the street, we're looking down to the road beneath our feet. I don't remember the exact conversation at this particular moment. Perhaps we were talking about what happened that night, but it could have just been easily about Star Wars or Akira or something. As we approached the dead end, which was only a few houses away, Tom and I suddenly stopped. We did so at the same time without saying one word to each other. Our heads slowly turned towards each other, both sensing something. The hair on our arms and backs of our necks stood up. Then our gaze slowly moved forward in unison. That's when we saw it. About 2 houses away, in a virtually barren front yard, was a dark figure. It was someone or something in dark robes. No face, no features, just the robe. Now, this figure didn't acknowledge us, not yet. It instead walked or moved in a certain way. I can't articulate it correctly. It was as if it was walking in circles without really walking. It held something that was blowing in the wind, and yes, the wind picked up. Another odd element was the light that illuminated it. There was a street light a few houses up, but it wasn't strong enough to illuminate the figure. Tom and I were frozen. I'm almost frozen as I write this. It's been a long time since I have thought about this. So there we stood, frozen in fear, staring at this dark figure moving, yet doing so without moving. And it was holding something. Or perhaps what was blowing in the wind was more of its robe. We stared at it, or I don't know how long, until suddenly it stopped and looked up at us, as if finally alarmed by our presence. That was enough. We ran as fast as we could. We cut through a side street that was led up to the parallel street towards my neighborhood. This street led to a slight hill as we rounded the corner and started running up the hill in a panic. We stopped because on top of that hill was another dark figure with its arm raised. We turned around and ran away in the direction of Tom's house, which at this distance was at least 5 miles away. We ran, and time stood still. The next thing I remember, we're lying in the middle of a courtyard of some other neighborhood that we'd never been in before, gasping for air. We sat up without saying a word. We walked in silence back to his house. The air felt normal, although we felt like we were in a haze, albeit out of danger. We fell asleep in his house. I woke up that morning and went home. A few days later, I rode my bike to that same location. Perhaps there was a certain tree or a bush or for sale sign, something that made it look like there was something else there. Nothing. It was an open yard. Tom and I didn't speak of that night for a long time. Years later, when I brought it up, he replied, "Yeah, what the hell was that?" As if nothing had happened. We hadn't taken any drugs. We hadn't been drinking. I often wondered if it could have been a haunting, a specter, a ghost, something. Maybe it was an alien. We saw no craft. There was the unexpected light. Or maybe it was some other kind of kids messing with us. How would they have known, though, where we were coming from? How could they have been so prepared? I don't know. That was 24 years ago. And yes, this is a true story. Sadly, my best friend Tom passed away suddenly a few months ago. I thought of this night during his funeral. I thought of returning to that site. I thought of the odd coincidence of unexpected and surprising death, just like my classmate that night. Was there a connection? Were we seeing some future fate for one of us? Which sadly fell upon my best friend Tom. Was this all some dual hallucination? In my mind, there's no way. It haunts me at all times.
That's why I let you read that one. You do it better than I could. there's an underlying theme with most of these, except for the one that I read. They an awful lot of them deal with kids. There's I don't know. Maybe I could talk about it sometime on some other program because it doesn't necessarily. Maybe it might fit here some night, but there's something about, and you guys know this, between being a child and being an adult, something happens to our ability to perceive things that you don't as an adult. Maybe it has to do something with our senses because we know when you reach around the age of 30, you don't hear as well as a child. There's sounds that certain phones can make that the kids hear and use where the adults and the teachers in class can't perceive. There's a lot of stories of little children that will see and play with grandparents, and they had been gone a long time, and yet they could describe them perfectly. So I don't know. The story, I was going to bring up one without eyes, but I think I am going to tell you my own personal story. And I was 19, I think. I was doing some charity work. I roomed with a guy from South Carolina, and just the only reason why I bring it up is simply because it applies to the story to some degree. He was, he's African American, very, very dark, super guy, good friend. I wish I would have kept in touch with him. But we came home one night. Our house that we lived in, it was the loft. It was kind of a big loft. We had a large bedroom, kitchen right next to it. It was in a square, and then across from the bedroom was kind of sort of a family room, and then in the far corner opposite the kitchen was the bathroom and a locked hallway that went downstairs. It was an emergency exit, but it was locked, and we should have got after the landlords because it should have been open, but it was always locked. So we came home from working hard and decided to have dinner. We made things separately, and at the time, I ate next to nothing. I was really skinny, and of course, he made himself a bowl of grits for dinner. Yeah, I know. And I can't remember what I got. I was still working on it. At the time, I usually made a meatloaf and divvied it up for about 3 days. Made sandwiches, different things. But he was sitting down. I was at the stove, and then I started hearing this banging around, and I heard him gasp. So I turned around, and this is a long, narrow kitchen dining room combination. It may have been 12 feet wide and about 20 feet long. And the table and his chair were up against one wall. But I turned around when he gasped, and his bowl was dancing on the table, literally bouncing around without him touching the table. Nothing was shaking the floor. And his eyes were the largest white eyes I've ever seen. And he got up and ran for the bedroom. We had shared the bedroom, different beds, of course. They were kids, late 80s. And I didn't think anything of it because I've had lots of ghost experiences. It wasn't that big of a deal to me. It was freaky because there's something moving on its own. And so I waited for it to kind of settle down, more curious than anything else. And then I went into the bedroom to check on him. And it's just like those old movies that some will say are racist. But he was laying in the bed. He had his sheet pulled all the way up over almost to his head. And all I saw was these bright, big white eyeballs sticking out of the sheets. And he was terrified. And I said, well, it's over with. You're all right. And he was shaking his head. No. And I said, well, you still hungry? And he goes, yeah. So I decided, all right, I'll go get your food. No problem. And he was thankful for that. So here I'm being nice and brave. And I walked back into the kitchen and grabbed his bowl of grits. And then the room went dark. And then the hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. And then the room got cold. And I don't know if any of you ever had true tunnel vision. Sometimes you get it when you have like a diabetic episode or various different things. But my vision really did tunnel down to about half of what it was in the center. And that's when I saw him. There was 3 individuals that walked from the window 2 stories up, past me, to the other side of the kitchen, and through the locked, closed door that went to this emergency stairwell. I was freaked now. I joined my friend in the other room. That was, I've seen, everyone may have seen shadows and the things in the corner of your eye or different stuff, but it's not often when you see an actual apparition at a distance or someone in the corner of a room. But I had 3 of them brush by me and out the kitchen and down the hall. And that was an experience. So there are those who say there are no such thing as ghosts. And my thing for you is to say, prove it. They have no proof, just their opinion. And yet there are people that you know, and you yourselves know, that these things do exist. And I have seen it on many occasions. And this is just one. All right, back to you, Chief.
Me and Adega were talking about this before we hopped on here because he asked me if I remembered if he ever told that, and I was like, no, you never told that. And I only saw one ghost ever. I've only ever seen one ghost, and I wouldn't have even believed that I saw it if it wasn't for the fact that somebody else knew I saw it, knew exactly what I saw, and said exactly what I saw, to the point where I'm like, holy shit, this is absolutely insane. I was 15. I was over at my then girlfriend's house. We were watching Hercules in the Underworld. And her father had this really old house on, they weren't on bricks, but they were on like concrete supports. And apparently during the Civil War, this was like a way station for soldiers that were going to a hospital. They'd get off the train. There was train tracks right by here. They got off the train right there, and they would unload them in this house, and then move them to the hospital from there. So anyway, I am sitting there and we're watching this, and I catch something out of the corner of my eye. I look down the hallway, and there's a woman standing there in brown clothes with what look almost like a white apron on, and something in her hair that I wasn't sure what it was until she actually told me about this. And she put her finger up to her mouth and then walked into the room that was right there in the hallway. And my girlfriend could tell by the look on my face that I had seen something, and said, "You saw her, didn't you?" And I was like, "Saw who?" And she described this woman in this brown dress with the white apron. And she said one of the old medical things that the women used to have in their hair, the nurses used to have in their hair, the little square patch thing. And I was just like, holy shit. I can't. Yeah. That's it. She said she put her finger up to her mouth, didn't you? I said, son of a bitch. And she goes, "You're not the only one. The whole family's seen her. Sometimes people come over, see her, but you're not the only one who's ever seen her." There was no one else there. There was no one else there. It was just me, her, and her dad. And that was it. I even went and looked in the room because I was like, bullshit. You're screwing with me. Because I didn't believe it. I was like, you're fucking with me. This is no. No, it was a woman in a brown dress. That was craziest shit I've ever seen. And the reason why I believe in ghosts, spirits. It's the only one I've ever seen. The only thing I can't explain. And if you
it only takes one.
Yeah, it only takes one.
There's several people in chat who's saying, yep, 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 yep. And Purple's freaking out. She's having deja vu.
Let's see. I read the guy, the Phantom.
Yeah.
Whispers.
Whatever you want to do. If you want to do that, or you want to go on to your other story or whatever. They're all kind of cool.
So I'm going to tell Whispers. This is called The Whispers. This is a story I do not often tell. I promise, sincerely, that this has scared me for life and scarred me. Scarred me for life. And although I have looked into psychological explanations for what I heard and natural explanations for what occurred, they remain unsatisfactory. When I was a child, I was scared of the dark. I swore to my mother I heard voices. They were not evil, but they were not familiar, and so they scared me. It was not uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them when asking my mom. She figured they were just bumps in the night, and typical kids' nightmare material. I tried often to explain to her that it was more than that they sounded different from one another, the way people's voices do. On some nights, I would get so scared from these whispers that I would sleep in my mom's bed with her. It was an added bonus that the bathroom was directly outside of her bedroom door for my late night tinkle. I should add at this point that when walking out into the hall to go to the bathroom, you look directly down the stairs that would lead you into the living room on the first floor. On one such night, on Christmas, I awoke and felt the need to relieve myself. I walked out from the door and distinctly heard the phrase, "Look." And to my astonishment, a red light, almost like a spotlight, was cast upon the wall at the very bottom of the stairs. The light had no other source. It was by itself, and I was transfixed by it. Being a little kid and it only being a few days from Christmas, I knew what this light was. It was Santa. How else could he get into my house and know exactly where everything was and that I had been a good boy? I was so excited. I began walking down the stairs to greet him, picking up my pace after the second step as it began to creep off the wall and fade into the darkness in the living room. That's when I heard him, a very strong, masculine voice, different from the first. Not at all like my father's, not to say he isn't masculine. It was just distinctly different. And it said, "Stop right now and go back up those stairs." I listened, turned around, and what happened next, I am not sure I would believe if someone had told me the same story. After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the entire night. When we awoke the next morning, the poinsettia lights, little Christmas flower lights that glowed red, my mother had put on the railing down the stairs, were pulled straight down to the bottom of the stairs, some broken from what seemed like a forceful tear, laying in a single pile. The dry sink in my living room had fallen from the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we had been the victims of a home invasion. My sister was crying. There was nothing missing. Nobody had broken in. There didn't seem to be any reason that this had happened. And that's when I saw it. And I kept quiet about it because I was so afraid that I could not force the words out of my mouth. There, on the edge of the wooden dry sink which had been facing up, were 3 indentations where the finish on the wood had been worn, almost as if in a forceful grip. Something down there had grabbed it and threw it down. That is what the bang was. I was mortified. After that day, I never heard a single voice again. I don't like to imagine what was waiting downstairs for me that night.
The things that go bump in the night.
Yes!
Oh. Should I do one more?
Yeah? Oh, yeah.
All right. This one, it's very short, and of course I can't read with the drama that Loki does unless I have a lot of rehearsal. But another true story, the little boy with no eyes, supposedly true. And you guys have seen movies and other people describe these things, so enough people have had this experience to where it probably is true. One night when I was 10, I was asleep in bed and was woken up by my bedroom door opening. And then someone sitting on my bed. I felt the gaze on my leg, and I felt a graze on my leg, and then the bed sank as if someone had sat. Thinking it was my mom having something to tell me, I opened my eyes only to see a pale eyeless, just black empty sockets, of a boy who seemed to be my age sitting at the foot of my bed, with his legs crossed, staring at me or facing my direction since he had no eyes. He then reached his hands toward me, and he was holding what looked like a little black box. I was freaked out, but as I reached to grab it, he hesitantly pulled it back. I reached out further for it and said, "Give it," just like a little kid would. As I did so, I blinked, and by the time I reopened my eyes, he was gone. The spot on the bed where he was sitting lifted back into its place, but the impression of someone sitting there was still present. I told my mom in the morning, and she was slightly freaked out, but assured me I was just dreaming. Fast forward 5 years. I had my girlfriend over to do homework. After homework, she took a nap while she waited for her parents to pick her up. When they arrived, I tried to wake her and let her know. I nudged her, and she opened her eyes so suddenly, already looking in the direction of the corner of the room where the wall meets the ceiling, lifting her finger and pointing. And as fast as she woke, she fell asleep again. I attempted to wake her again. She came to full consciousness, and I asked her what the hell that was about and explained what she had done. She said, "Oh, I thought I was dreaming, but up on the wall I saw a little boy with no eyes, just there, in a Spider-Man pose, staring at me." That's when I freaked out and told her the story. For the first time, of when I saw what I had guessed was the same kid. Fast forward another 5 years, still with the same girlfriend, and by this time we had a 2-year-old daughter. We were living in my old bedroom at my parents' house. My daughter would wake up at the same time every night and start talking. For a while, we thought it was normal baby thing until I noticed it was almost the same conversation every night. I playfully asked her one night who she was talking to every night. She responded, "A little boy. He talks to me. He's nice. He's lost and looking for his mommy." I told my mom what had happened the next morning, and before I got to tell her what I thought, she said, "I remember that it happened to you, then your girlfriend. I have no idea what it is." By then, neither my girlfriend or I have seen since then, I've never seen the little boy after that, or after the first encounter from my daughter. And her nightly conversations continued until they moved next year. So, I don't know if there's a lot of those eyeless ones. I don't know what the deal is with those. But 3 generations or 2 generations, a mother, father, and baby, all saw the same thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, and mountains, I'm going to have to get with you about that Fae thing, because I never heard that the Fae represent themselves similar to the story I said. Ghosts.
Have you ever met a fae?
Would you even know?
Hmm. Hmm. So I got one more story. How about that? You wanna cliffhanger it on that?
You're the boss.
Halloween is by far my favorite time of year. The one wonderful day where walking around with a mask on is socially acceptable. Masks hold quite a unique place in society. A mask can transform anyone into any other. Turn an actor into a character, hide the secret identity of a superhero, or even allow monsters to walk among men. You never know what's behind a mask until it's taken off, but that's the best part of Halloween. No one is going to take off anyone's mask. There is no gang of teenagers with their talking dog there to strip away my disguise and reveal the truth underneath. No, this is reality. On Halloween, I'm perfectly able to hide in plain sight. Of course, wearing a mask has its own special meaning for me because I'm not an actor, a superhero, or even a monster. Not in the fictional terms, at least. No, I simply use a mask as a means of entry. Any mask works well. So long as it covers my face, I manage to use a different one every year. All I need to do is walk the streets of my suburban neighborhood, weave my way through various decorations, and dodge packs of trick or treaters until I hear the familiar blaring of loud music. Like a sailor to a siren at sea, I'm drawn to that music, to the party that it emanates from. Yes, this is why Halloween is wonderful. No one seems to ever ask any questions at the door. All I really need to do is knock and wave when the door opens. The masks make people just assume I'm there for the party. Hell, sometimes people just leave the front door wide open, allowing even easier access to their home. On Halloween, no one gives a second glance towards a masked man making his way through their home, which is what makes my hobby oh so fun. They are completely oblivious as I approach their food. They continue to chatter and gossip as I add my own special ingredient to their wonderful bowl of punch. They continue to dance and play as I stab small, sharp needles into their chocolates and their sweets. It isn't until their first friend drops to the floor that people start to panic. It's the same every year. As soon as I leave the party and hear the chaos rising behind me, an unstoppable grin forms under my mask. Screams of terror are such a pleasant noise for such a pleasant holiday. I almost get too much joy out of reading that. God.
That's a creepy pasta, right? That's not some
creepypasta.
manifesto from someone from California in the 80s.
No, that's creepypasta.
Because I heard some people saying, the razor blade things and stuff was all, that's all wise tales and rumors. And yet, when I was a child, that happened.
So I remember the Tylenol thing and I remember the candy thing. Remember the black and brown or the black and orange peanut butter candies? The chocolate, they were the chocolate. They had like they were peanut butter. They were peanut butter and peanut butter. They were chewy peanut butter candies that were wrapped in black and wrapped in orange, and they had peanut butter in the middle.
Yeah.
Someone
tar, I think is what they call those.
Yeah, someone injected something into those, and then the Tylenol thing where the person was putting cyanide in the Tylenol.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Someone played on that. Ugh. Ugh.
yeah. So whether that was from 2015 in Deaths, Murders, and Disappearances, Seasonally Spooky, Party Crashing on Creepypasta.
Yeah. Bad memories of good times. When I was a kid, we'd do all that trick or treating and stuff, and then we always got leery. And just like Chris said there, we knew at that point the 80s was when you stopped taking apples or homemade goods.
Mm-hmm. Candy apples. Yeah.
Yep.
Remember when it was okay to take candy apples?
Yep.
I remember getting a candy apple every year until I was like 8 years old. And then they were like, nope, can't have it no more. Why not? Because nothing that's not wrapped. Your father has to go through the candy and make. And I'm like, nah, he's just going to take the best stuff. I ain't doing that. He's just going to take the best stuff. No, you can't have anything that's not wrapped. And he'd be like, you don't want this peanut butter, or you don't want this chocolate bar with peanuts in it, right? I'm like, no. He's like, all right, I'm keeping that. How about this Snickers bar? You don't want that. It's a whole Snickers bar now. No, keep it.
The best trick-or-treating I ever had, though, I'm going to end with this. You could, whatever you want to bring up afterwards, but we went to my friend's neighborhood because they had a little bit more money. And we were knocking on all these doors, and this one had dim lights, and my friends decided they weren't going to. Oh, no, we all knocked there. Now I remember. We all knocked there, and this huge guy opened up the door, and he gave out these candy bars. They were the regular size candy bars for the time. And my friends are going, you see who that was? And no, I didn't follow football that well at the time. And I said, that was Jim Youngblood. And I don't know if any of you know, but he was he was a well-known quarterback for the LA Rams back then. And so they said, no, it couldn't have been him. And I was, I'm going back. Knocked on the door. The big guy came to the door, and he had no neck because it went from his ears straight to the tips of his shoulders. He was so buff. And I said, you Jim Youngblood? And he goes, shh, yeah. And he gave me a big, huge candy bar. And I'm going, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
God. The best place that I remember getting candy was a couple streets down. It was like all the 2-story, 3-story houses, and they would give full-size candy bars away. So getting a Snickers bar or a Crunch bar or a Butterfinger, that was absolutely possible because they just gave full-size candy bars away.
Yeah. And there's always that lucky chance you run into the bowl where the people aren't there, and they said, please take one. And you leave with the bowl empty.
Dude, okay. So I will tell you this. You remember when everyone was going crazy with Scream, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we did that year was my buddy Chris, who I've talked about on this show a couple times before.
Yep.
Yeah. Dressed up as Ghostface, right? But we propped him out on the bench in front of the house with the bowl in his lap. So every time them little bastards came up and they were like, oh, just get the bowl. Fucking knife coming out, your butcher knife, real butcher knife. Scared the shit out of these kids. Oh my God, did we scare the shit out of these kids? It was just like, yes.
And those kids never forgot that.
No, never forgot it. Oh, shit.
Thanks for having me on again.
Thank you for coming on, brother. This is absolutely awesome. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming out and hanging out with me and Adega. Guys, thank you. You guys make this show what it is, and you guys keep us coming back every week. So thank you. Guys, just so you know, because this is going to irritate the shit out of Adega, in the description of this stream is a link.
You didn't.
To Adega's Teespring store that has his Directive t-shirt. It's in the description of this video. Okay? Adega has a Teespring store, and and he's like, no one's gonna buy anything, and I'm like,
I wanted it for me. I just wanted them to make a shirt.
So get a directive shirt. I'm gonna buy 2, so get a directive shirt. If you want, get a directive shirt. The links in the
Well,
thing. It's gonna irritate the shit out of them that I'm gonna be doing this, but I don't care. I don't care. I'm gonna do it anyway because that's me. Adega has merch. Yes, purple. Purple's good.
it's
Adega has merch.
for those of you who may not have read, well, if you hadn't heard the story, because my book, if you had the book, it only touches on it a little bit. The Directive are quite a nasty group, and they're a breakaway society. And what is on the shirt comes from, if you listen to Children of the Directive on my channel, you'll know a lot about them. It is their logo and their chant. The chant is on the front, the logo is on the back. So that comes from Children of the Directive. Bad people. You can join the dark side of my universe. But I just wanted the shirt. Gee.
Now, Psycho Dwarf 9 throws out a $5 super chat and says, Halloween prank, you can't glue a teacher's desk to a false ceiling. I will go one better. We disassembled my motor shop. We disassembled the teacher's car and reassembled it in his office.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, was he pissed? How you gonna get this damn thing out of here? Well, we're gonna take it apart and put it together. Oh shit. Oh, Chris Burgess says, Adega, I need an XL, and the site says they're out of stock. Please ask them to release some more, please. I don't know
how many they made or what they're gonna make. Like I said, I just wanted one. And then I posted it on Twitter, just, maybe, I don't know if anyone was interested. Thank you. Honestly, it was just, I appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to order 2 XLs. So you better have XLs back in stock when I order. Everybody, take care. Have a great one. Be excellent to each other and always speak friend to enter. Later, everybody.
Night.
These videos
Dang
are tremendous.
t-shirt. Jeez.
Like, comment, and subscribe. And hit that notification bell.